Hi everyone, all my class 9 students of the ICSE group. How are y'all? So today I'm going to start with your poem or doctor's journal entry. Okay, we are starting with that. So you please open your textbooks and we shall start with that. A doctor's journal entry of August 6th. Yes, a doctor's journal entry for August 6th, 1945. That is a poem that we are going to do, and we are going to begin with that. Now, before we begin with that, as usual, we will first read about the poem, the poet. The poet, of course, is Vikram Seth. Vikram Seth is still alive. He was born in Calcutta. His father was an executive of Bata Shoes, and his mother, Leela Seth, was a barrister by training. She became the first female judge of the Delhi High Court and the first woman to become the Chief Justice of a state high court in India. Seth was educated at the Doon School in Dehradun. He was influenced by his teacher and mountaineer Gurudyal Singh. According to Leela Seth, Gurudyal Singh guided Vikram in many ways, encouraged him to appreciate Western classical music and instilled in him the love of adventure and daring. Gurudyal Singh describes Seth as an indefatigable worker who put in enormous amount of energy in other spheres of school life, in dramatics, in debating, in first aid, in music, and in editing. After graduating from Doon, Seth went to Tonbridge School, England, where he completed his A levels. He has won several awards such as Padma Shri, Sahitya Akademi Award, Pravasi Bharatiya Samman, W.H. Smith Literary Award, and the Crossword Book Award. Seth's collection of poetry such as Mappings and Beastly Tales are notable contributions to the Indian English language poetry treasure. Seth divides his time between United Kingdom and India, where he has a family home in Noida, Uttar Pradesh. The poem was published in 1990 and reflects upon the miserable picture of war. A doctor's journal entry for August 6, 1945 is an anti-war poem, and it describes the horrors in the aftermath of an atomic bomb explosion. This tragic poem depicts the frightful condition of the survivors of the atomic explosion by the United States of America on Hiroshima, Japan during the end of World War II on 6th August 1945. So first of all, this picture for y'all, please pause the video. Take a video of this, take a screenshot of this setting. This is the setting of the poem which we will be reading together. A doctor's journal entry for August 6, 1945. Setting. The poem is set in the city of Hiroshima in Japan, the day when the Allied forces dropped the atom bomb on the city in an attempt to force the Japanese emperor to surrender and end the Second World War. The poet has effectively and poignantly used the setting to describe the horror unleashed by the dropping of the first ever nuclear bomb. Beginning with a calm, beautiful morning with shiny leaves, which the city soon gets covered with a blanket of smoke and fire. The explosion caused thermal radiation that burned the surroundings with extreme heat. The poet has used the setting to depict the utter shock that was experienced by the people of Japan, making them speechless, unable to cry in spite of their severe suffering. However, the Japanese withstood this calamity, you can write man-made, And with their indomitable spirit and hard work, the Japanese people rose up bit by bit to gradually rebuild their city and their world. So the setting is very clear. There is no ambiguity about the setting. Now I want you all to take a picture of the... Okay, we'll read the poem first so that you are able to appreciate the style and the style and the form of the poem. Okay, before I give that to you, let's begin with the poem itself. I keep losing it. God knows where it's gone. Yeah, I'll take some time to open. Okay. A doctor's journal entry for August 6, 1945. The morning stretched, calm, beautiful, and warm. Sprawling half-clad, I gazed out at the form of shimmering leaves and shadows. Suddenly, a strong flash, then another, startled me. I saw the old stone lantern burn brightly. Magnesium flares? While I debated it, the roof, the walls, and as it seemed, the world collapsed in timber and debris. Dust swirled around me. In the garden now, and weird, my drawers and undershirt disappeared. A splinter jutted from my mangled thigh. My right side bled. My cheek was torn, and I dislodged detachedly a piece of glass, all the time wondering what had come to pass. Where was my wife? Alarmed, I gave a shout. Where are you, Yeko-san? My blood gushed out. The artery in my neck, scared for my life, I called out, panic-stricken, to my wife. Pale, blood-stained, frightened, Yeko-san emerged, holding her elbow. We'll be fine, I urged. Let us get out quickly. Stumbling to the street, we tripped by something at our feet. I gasped out when I saw it was a head. Excuse me, please excuse me. But he was dead. A gate had crushed him. There we stood, afraid. A house standing before us, tilted, swayed, toppled, and crashed. Fire sprang up in the dust, spread by the wind. It dawned on us, we must get to the hospital. We needed aid, and I should help my staff too. Though this made sense to me then, I wonder how I could. How could I help my staff? Because my legs gave way. I sat down on the ground. Thirst seized me, but no water could be found. My breath was short, but bit by bit, my strength seemed to revive, and I got up at length. I was still naked, but I felt no shame. This thought disturbed me somewhat, till I came upon a soldier standing silently, who gave the towel round his neck to me. My legs, stiff with dried blood, rebelled, and I said to Yeko-san, she must go on ahead. She did not wish to, but in our distress, what choice had we? A dreadful loneliness came over me. When she had gone, my mind ran at high speed. My body crept behind. I saw the shadowy forms of people. Some were ghosts, some were scarecrows. All were wordless, dumb. Arms stretched straight out, shoulder to dangling hand. It took some time for me to understand. The friction on their burns caused so much pain. They feared to chafe flesh against flesh again. Those who could shuffled in blank parade towards the hospital. I saw dismayed A woman with a child stand in my path, both naked. Had they come back from a bath? I turned my gaze, but was at a loss that she should stand thus till I came across a naked man. And now the thought arose that some strange thing had stripped us of our clothes. The face of an old woman on the ground was marred with suffering, but she made no sound. Silence was common to us all. I heard no cries of anguish or a single word. Children, there is so much pain in this poem, and if we have a little bit of empathy in us, we can feel the helplessness of the people who had to face the first atomic bomb. Okay, so now we will come to the style of the poem. As you have noticed, it is a doctor's journal entry. Okay, so the style, so he hasn't actually kept up to any rhymes or rhythm. It is just in plain prose narrative. So the style of the poem is narrative in technique. I've got a sheet for you. Please pause the video and take a printout, whatever it's called. Okay, so we come to the style or the form. It is narrative in technique. This poem is in the form of a journal entry made by a hibakusha. Hibakusha is a Japanese word for a bomb survivor. This narrative style allows the poet to express his innermost thoughts. A woman with a child stand in my path, both naked. Had they come back from a bath? Very simple. It's just a narrative by somebody who has survived the bomb explosion. So he is giving his innermost thoughts. Then the second style is lyrical. The poem is a lyric of a poet's sorrow and suffering. Do you know what is a lyric? If not, please write down. A lyric is a poem which deals with the poet's own feelings, his state of mind and perception. A poem which deals with the poet's own feelings, his state of mind and perception. And it was, that is the meaning of a lyric, okay? So this poem is a lyric of the poet's sorrow and suffering with hope and longings, writing it in a colloquial style, yet rhyming at particular places. For example, it rhymes over here when he says the morning was stretched, calm, beautiful and warm. Sprawling, half clad, I gazed out at the form. So warm and form is rhyming. Okay, then we have imagery. Now most of the images in this poem are built up by description. He has used less metaphors. There is no indirect comparison over here because there is no room for any decorative language. So it is very simple. He has used simple imagery. A house standing before us, just tilted. It just tilted and then it sort of swayed and toppled and crashed. And fire sprang up in the dust. So very simple narrative form. Okay, so that much for the style of the poem. So now I'll give you also, let's discuss the themes of the poem. What are basically the themes of the poem? Now this poem basically, the main theme of this poem is a plea for disarmament, because the poem begins with the horrors of a nuclear tragedy which had been faced by the Japanese people after World War II. So it is basically a plea for disarmament. It implicitly conveys to us the message that nuclear weapons are absolutely inhuman and they are totally unacceptable. Okay, a nuclear weapon will cause all-round destruction and it will greatly maim and disfigure everything around us. Okay, so that is why it makes us think as to why should we not abolish nuclear wars. This is the main theme, okay, of the poem. And the theme also tells us about the indomitable spirit of the Japanese people. This tragedy had completely wiped out two cities. This August 6th that he says is basically when the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. Okay, it was called as Little Boy by the USA who dropped this bomb. Okay, so it was called as that. And then because they wanted to force Japan to surrender, and then in spite of that, when they withstood this, there was another bomb which was dropped on Nagasaki 3 days after this bomb. Okay, and these two cities were completely wiped out. However, what the theme actually shows us, that in spite of this man-made calamity, Japan withstood this calamity with their indomitable spirit, because he says, and bit by bit my strength revived, my strength seemed to revive. Okay, and gradually the Japanese people rebuilt their cities and they rebuilt their world. So this is the first theme, that is a plea for disarmament, and it shows us the indomitable spirit of the Japanese people. Then there is another theme in this, which is a portrayal of the physical and mental agony that the people had to go through. And this physical and mental agony which he describes in the poem, it arouses in us a disgust for nuclear weapons and their irrational use. The physical agony is seen when this survivor of the atomic of this calamity, he says that a splinter jutted from my mangled thigh. This depicts to us the physical agony that he had to face when he says that I pulled it out. And it also shows that there were ghosts. They looked like ghosts and scarecrows, and all were wordlessly dumb because they stretched out their arms, as if because there was so much of burn that they just could not allow their arms for flesh to touch flesh. It was so difficult because it was so painful that their arms, which were totally burnt, their skin which was totally burnt, they could not allow it, the flesh could not touch flesh. It was so painful. So that is the physical agony that the poet has told us. Okay, so they were wordlessly dumb. They just could not express their anguish. Then the mental agony is also depicted in this poem by the survivors. This entire poem is a mental agony that they had to face, and it focuses us to think about the horrors of the nuclear war. So basically the main theme of this poem is, it is an anti-war theme. The poet wants to tell us that the main theme is anti-war, to avoid the physical and mental agony. The theme. So there are two main themes. One is it's an anti-war theme, and second, it is a plea for disarmament. Okay, portrayal of physical and mental agony. I hope you have got all these themes. Now we come to the title. When we talk about the title of this, what is the title of your poem? A doctor's journal entry for August 6th, 1945. That is the title of this poem. Now, this title is very, very apt because it describes in detail what happened on August 6th. It was a dark day in human history. It is a very infamous day which people should know about because of its infamousness. Okay. So the title is very apt because it is a description of that particular day, and the title is an apt title. It tells us about the aftermath that is faced by the people who survived the first atomic bomb. Okay. So with that, I will talk to you about the symbolism and all after we understand the poem. So let's start with the explanation of the poem. Okay. The morning stretched calm, beautiful, and warm. Sprawling, half clad. Sprawling means stretching. Half clad means he was probably in his shorts or whatever. Half clad, I gazed out at the form of the shimmering leaves. So he was just sitting and relaxing. The morning was beautiful, and he was just looking at the beautiful shining leaves in the sunshine. Okay. Suddenly, a strong flash and then another startled me, means he was taken aback by this strong flash of light. And he's saying magnesium flares. Now magnesium flares are basically elements which can be burnt to give light to us. Okay. So while I was debating in his mind, he was wondering that are these magnesium flares, what exactly is happening. Suddenly, the roof, the walls, and the world collapsed in timber and debris, and dust swirled around me in the garden now. So, what is he saying? Debris means fragments of the wreckage. The building suddenly started falling, the wall suddenly started falling, and everything around him was as if debris was falling all around him. And in the garden now, and my drawers means his shorts or underwear. And his undershirt was the banyan that he was wearing. So my drawers, my shorts, and the banyan that he was wearing suddenly just disappeared. Okay. And a splinter jutted from my mangled thigh. Now, what is a splinter? A splinter is a sharp piece, please write down. It is a sharp piece broken off from wood or glass. They had wooden buildings also. So that is a splinter. And that splinter suddenly hit his thigh. And from there it just mangled. His thigh was mangled. My cheek was torn. And I dislodged detachedly a piece of glass. So his cheek was torn. There was a piece of glass in his cheek. And in a very detached manner, without any emotion, he just took out that piece of glass. Okay. All the time wondering what had come to pass. So he was still wondering what has suddenly happened, that everything around me is falling and my thigh has got a hurt, it's a splinter there. My cheek also, I have to pull out something. My right side bled, my cheek was torn, and I dislodged detachedly a piece of glass, all the time wondering what had come to pass. Where was my wife? Now the thought of his wife came to his mind, that, oh God, where is my wife? And he shouted out, alarmed, frightened, he said, where are you, Yako-san? That's his wife's name. Where are you, Yako-san? My blood gushed out, means it flew out with full force. To gush out means to flow out with full force. So my wife gushed out. The artery in my neck. So he's worried that the artery in my neck had broken. Scared for my life, I called out. So he was scared about his life, but still he called out for his wife because he was so worried about his wife. And he said, I called out panic stricken to my wife. Now, when he called out again to his wife, she appeared, pale. Now, the description of his wife is given. Pale, blood-stained, frightened, Yako-san emerged. Okay, so she suddenly came holding her elbow. Okay, she was holding her elbow. So, one look at his wife, and he told his wife, we'll be fine. It's like as if though he was so hurt and he was still imagining what had happened, he still had that feeling in his heart, and he told his wife, it's okay, don't worry, we'll be fine. Let's get out quickly. So let's leave this place quickly and let's get out of here. Stumbling to the street. Stumbling means almost falling into the street. We fell, tripped by something at our feet. So while they were stumbling out into the street, they tripped over something. And as is natural for Japanese people who are basically very polite people, he just said, oh, excuse me, please excuse me. So he said, excuse me, but he was dead. So he was shocked to see that he had stumbled across a corpse, a dead person. A gate had crushed him. And there we stood afraid. So we were scared that, oh, this person had already died. A house standing before us tilted, swayed, moved, toppled, and crashed. So all this happened. There was a house which was standing in front of them, which toppled and crashed. Fire sprang up in dust, spread by the wind. It dawned on us, we must get to the hospital. We needed aid. So they realized that they had to get to the hospital because they needed help. They were hurt all over. But in that moment of realization, this person who has survived the explosion, look at the thought in his mind. He says, and I should help my staff too. Though this made sense to me then, means at that time while he was traveling, it made a lot of sense to him that I must help my staff. I wonder how I could. But he's saying at that time it made sense to me, but I'm thinking how could I have helped them, because my legs gave way, means I myself was unable to walk. I sat down on the ground. Thirst seized me. So his legs could not move. He was extremely thirsty, but no water could be found. I mean, it means, children, that there was so much of heat, there was so much of temperature, high temperature that had spread around that all the water had dried. So no water could be found. My breath was short. It was very difficult for them to breathe. So this physical agony that we see over here, all this physical agony, that his legs could not walk, he was very thirsty, he had to sit on the ground, he just could not walk, and he could not find any water. My breath was short, but bit by bit, my strength seemed to revive. So slowly but surely, my strength slowly revived. Okay, and I got up at length, means after a long period of time I got up. Okay, I was still naked. You remember he said that something, a splinter had, where is it gone? My drawers and undershirt had disappeared. So he realizes that he was still naked, but I felt no shame. This thought disturbed me. So the fact that in spite of being naked, he did not feel any shame. This very thought of feeling no shame disturbed him. This thought disturbed me somewhat till I came upon a soldier standing silently who gave the towel around his neck to me. So there was a soldier who was standing there. He gave me a towel. My legs were stiff with dried blood. My legs rebelled. So my legs refused to move forward. My legs did not want to move forward. Why? Because of all that blood which had come out of my legs. That blood had dried up due to the heat, and my legs were as if rebelling. They just could not walk. Okay. I said to Yeko-san, she must go on ahead. So he's saying that I told my wife, Yeko-san, that it's okay. If I can't move, no problem. You go ahead. You walk ahead. She did not wish to. Obviously, you don't want to leave your husband. So she did not wish to. But in our distress, what choice had we? So in our anguish, distress means in our anguish, my wife had no choice but to go ahead. So what choice had we? A dreadful loneliness came over me when she had gone. So when my wife went away forward, there was a dreadful loneliness that I felt because she had gone ahead. My mind ran at high speed. So this is the mental anguish of not being able to be with the person you love so much. And she had to leave because she had no choice. So this is the mental anguish that is expressed over here by the poet. So my mind ran at high speed. My body crept behind. I saw the shadowy forms of people. So now he started observing everything around him. And he is saying, I saw the shadowy forms of people. Some were like ghosts. Were ghosts means they were like ghosts. Some were like scarecrows. You know what's a scarecrow, na? With his two hands like spread out. A scarecrow just moves that way. So some were like a scarecrow. All were wordless and dumb. Arms stretched out, shoulder to dangling hand. So hanging loosely, their arms were hanging loosely. It took me some time to understand that. Now, what did he understand? It took him some time to understand this, that the friction on their burns, their hands were burnt so much that the friction on their burns caused them so much pain because the skin was absolutely peeled out. And this physical pain was so much that they did not want their own hands to rub against their own flesh. So that much of physical agony is depicted over here. The friction on their burns caused so much pain that they feared to chafe flesh against flesh again. Chafe means to become sore by rubbing. Those who could shuffled in blank parade. To shuffle in blank parade means to walk involuntarily. Okay, to walk around involuntary, as if they were in a trance. That is the meaning of a blank parade. To walk around involuntarily as if they were in a trance, like they were just walking around, not knowing what is happening to them. Those who could shuffled in a blank parade towards the hospital. I saw dismayed, means I was absolutely discouraged. Then what did he see? A woman with a child stand in my path. So there was a woman with a child. She was standing right in front of me in my path, and both were naked. Had they come back from a bath? Now this is a thought that he has, that the woman and the child both are naked. So have they come back from a bath? I turned my gaze, but was at a loss that she should stand thus. I turned away. I looked away. I did not want to see the woman and a child naked. So I turned my gaze that she should stand thus till I came across a naked man. So now, as soon as he turned his gaze, he saw a naked man. And now the thought arose that some strange thing had stripped us of our clothes. So he's saying now the thought has arisen in his mind that there was something strange which had stripped us of our clothes. It was the effect of the bomb which had fallen, which had ripped apart the clothes of every human being. Not only the clothes, but even their skin. So it was as if it was such a brutal act of humanity that had stripped not only the human beings, but the act was so brutal that it had stripped the entire humanity. Humanity had been stripped on that particular day. So some strange thing had stripped us of our clothes. Okay, the face of an old woman on the ground was marred with suffering. There was an old woman's face which was lying on the ground, and it was spoiled by intense suffering. But she made no sound. So this woman whose face was marred, spoiled because of intense suffering, there was so much suffering on her face that her entire face was marred. Silence was common to us all. Means not one person was willing to speak. There was just silence. Everybody was dumb. Everybody had become numb. Everybody was feeling so helpless. They just didn't know what to do. They were so helpless. And it was that helplessness which led to their silence. Like as if now we have no choice. There is absolutely no choice left but to surrender. Okay. Silence was common to us all. I heard No cries of anguish means there was no complaining about the deep pain. You can imagine the spirit of the Japanese people, that in spite of so much of pain, like having your entire skin peeled off and everything, the anguish was so great that they became absolutely numb. They did not want to open their mouths to even tell the people or tell each other the pain that they felt, because everybody was feeling the same amount of anguish. Everybody was feeling the same amount of pain. So silence was common to us all. I heard no cries of anguish, nor a single word. So the poet is a person who has survived this, and he is saying that even though there was so much of pain, I could hear no complaints on that particular day. So that brings us to the explanation of the poem. And it's really a very sad poem, and it is really a plea for disarmament, and it really has very well portrayed the physical and mental agony of the people, and of course the indomitable spirit of the Japanese people. So that much for the explanation of the poem. And now I'll give you the I don't know, did I give you? Yes, I've given you the style already. I've given you the style, and now we will come to the critical appreciation of this poem. So now critically, before we appreciate this poem, I want you all to pause the video and take a screenshot as usual, so that it's easier for you to recollect what we discuss. So if you have taken a screenshot, let's come to the critical remarks. The critical remarks. The first thing is the symbolism in this poem. This poem is a symbolic poem. The bombs had torn apart the human beings of their clothes. Okay, this is what the poet has told us, that the clothes of the human beings had been torn apart. But what does this signify? What is the symbolism? This signifies that humanity was deprived of the human nature. Humanity was made bare, raw, and burnt by the senseless fate of history, to be remembered as a deterrent to all the future generations. This is the symbolism in the poem. You can quote this. The thought arose that some strange thing had stripped us of our clothes. This line highlights, what is the symbolism? This line highlights the moral nakedness of those people who perpetrated such a brutal act. That is what I want you all to remember. It highlights the moral nakedness of those people who perpetrated such a brutal act. Next, what is the symbolism? Also note how from the ashes man is reborn, showing the strength of human beings to withstand the worst man-made calamity. It is not a natural calamity, it is a calamity created by humans. So it is showing the strength of human beings to withstand the worst man-made calamity, where he says, my breath was short, but bit by bit my strength seemed to revive, and I got up at length. It was this indomitable spirit and will to do things which spurred by determination. So it was this indomitable spirit and will spurred by determination which has made Japan today one of the world leaders. Japan never asked anybody for help. You must remember this, children. It was only their determination which has made Japan so strong and one of the world leaders today. So that is the symbolism. There is one more symbolism which I want to draw your attention to. Take a quick screenshot. This is the most important symbolism of human goodness and compassion, and the feeling that the feeling for somebody else, the empathy, the human goodness that a human being should have, which we see in these Japanese people, in spite of being affected by such a great calamity. Let's read it. In spite of intense suffering and chaos, the goodness in human nature does not vanish. There is hope, care, and concern in their attitude. Inverted commas. We needed aid. Means we, the poet, the doctor is saying that we needed help, we needed aid. But, and in the same breath, he is saying, and I should help my staff too. Though this made sense to me at that time, when we suffered this calamity, I wonder how I could have hoped, hurt as I was, to do so much of good. I was so hurt, so I wondered that how, and now he's saying, I wonder how I could have done so much good when I myself needed so much of help. But at that time it made sense to me. The doctor could not himself move, but he was still worried about those he knew, though he finds himself absolutely helpless. It was this human nature which gave rise to strong determination to overcome and rise above this man-made calamity. And I think that is the reason why this poem really always needs to be included, and it is for us to understand that we should it should be a deterrent to us against any kind of war. So with that, I think I have covered up all the topics that I needed to. I have told you about the poet and everything that we have read, this entire note about the poet. I have discussed the style, I have discussed the form of the poem, the setting of the poem, and I hope I have not left out anything. The themes of the poem, the title of the poem, and of course the critical remarks, which are very, very important because it shows us what humans can be if they choose to be. So similarly, I want all my students to have an absolutely indomitable spirit, learn to strive, learn to work hard as if everything depends on you, and then pray to God as if everything depends on Him. You will never be defeated. It is a spirit to keep going in spite of any difficulty, which will make you win. So see you all again at my next poem. I have completed this poem today. See you again with the next poem. Bye all of you all of class 9, and wish you all a very happy studying. Bye.